Welcome to WRM, Work Relationships Matter. I'm your host, the Edward Jones, a certified life coach, founder of Pro Destiny Coaching. Whether you work in a private corporation, a nonprofit, operate in an educational institution, or operate as an entrepreneur, work relationships matter. All my guests have been done very well with relationships. That's why they're so successful. My guest today is Angel Torrence. She's a former hospital administrator turned entrepreneur. She now has the CEO and founder of Angel Wings Floral Designs. She
Mhm.
is here to share her thoughts and experiences that will be beneficial to you. Welcome, Angel.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you for having me today.
And I'm so glad to have you. Now, we've gone to mixers before, whether it's chamber or whatever it might be, put
Mhm.
that name tag on. And someone, the first thing they do when they come and ask you, what do you do? But I want to know what that is. But before I get to that one, I want to know who you are. When you grew up, there were probably people, events, and different things that influenced you.
Right.
So I want to learn a little bit more about who you are before we start talking about all the things that you've done. So tell us about your background.
Okay, sure. Most family and friends refer to me as Angel, but my full name is Angelique Maria, and my maiden name was Dorsey. My last name is Torrance. Now I've been married 32 years to a wonderful man. But I grew up in Oakland, California, to John Dorsey. He was my dad. He was in the Navy. He was gone a lot. And to my mom, Linda Caillou. Um, Mom and dad divorced very early in my life, both remarried. But I am the oldest girl of seven siblings. So we had a big family, and that came with a lot of responsibility, especially with the older ones. I stayed pretty close to home. I was pretty quiet. I guess that people would have called me shy, but I was pretty quiet, um, and helped mom around the house. But creativity and the arts have always been a part of our family history, whether it was music or theater or fashion design. It seemed like someone in each generation would surely go into the arts. What's interesting is that I never felt that I was creative. It was always my sister or my brother or my mom. My mom sang beautifully. Um, but I think maybe watching her, she sewed beautifully. And we didn't have a lot of money, especially when you have six, seven siblings. But she always sewed so beautifully. I have a story, if you don't mind me sharing.
Please.
We I would come home and we had these beautiful flowered curtains on the window, right? And one day the curtains were gone, and 2 days later, my sister and I had beautiful dresses. That's how she, was able to ensure that we had those kinds of things. We had beautiful Easter dresses. We had Halloween costumes. She also made dolls. And so I think my influences started from our family history. My mom watching her as she created beautiful things growing up and just staying very close to her. Again, I never thought of myself as creative, but I think that's where some of the details in my design have come from watching my mom.
Well, that is excellent. And your siblings, were they all creative? You said they were creative, or you
They
perceive them to?
are. Yeah, I have my sister's an actress. I have a brother who's a singer. My son is a singer. My grandfather sang in the red light district in New Orleans. My grandfather was a musician. My
Mm.
grandmother was a singer. I have two uncles who play instruments. There was always someone. We sing, the family sings. Now I don't think that I'm a great singer, but my mom and my sister, they sing beautifully. And so the arts is really a family history.
All right. So you have the performing arts and the visual arts
Hmm.
all
Right.
in one family.
Yeah.
That's that's very rich tradition, and just love to have that talent. Probably just probably kept the place full of joy with them,
Right.
whether you're looking at or just listening to people sing.
I think I just grew up taking it all in. I
Mhm.
didn't sing and I didn't dance, but I think I just grew up taking it all in from the family.
Well, that's great because it's really interesting when I talk with people because the thing that I found out, people that I've known for years,
Mhm.
when I do this podcast, I find out so much more about them. One of the things that I think about, I never think of you as being shy. I think of you as being somewhat quiet, but confident. And
Yes.
so to think of you as being kind of shy and maybe a little retiring is really interesting. So uh, I know you got into hospital administration, which
Mhm.
I don't know if that's creative or not, but obviously it's very
Mhm.
important. So how did you get there?
Oh, you know, um, I had an aunt who worked as a nurse, and I worked for Kaiser for 40 years, but I had an aunt who worked as a nurse. And I remember I was 18. I did not want to go off to college right away. And I think it had to do with staying close to home. And maybe I didn't have the confidence at that time. But my aunt told me to come over and apply for a little 8 hour a week job and pushing the cart. That's when we had paper charts in the hospital setting. And so I did that. And I moved into a 20-hour position and then to a 40-hour position. But that's really how I got started. I worked for Kaiser Permanente for 40 years, and I worked my way up through the ranks. I went back to college in my later in my 20s, finished my bachelor's degree, went on to get my master's degree, advanced. The department that I worked in was member relations, and that was good for me because I found that I had compassion for people. I had the ability to empathize with our patients, and really put myself in their shoes. And so when I got into member relations, I knew that was where I wanted to be. So I was able to advance into just from being a representative to area director of three different facilities. And so I worked in Kaiser for 40 years. I retired last year in November in 2020. And that was a difficult, I don't know if it was difficult, but it was challenging because I had worked my whole life. I always knew I wanted to pursue another career, especially in the floral design work, but it gets scared. It gets a little scary. I was 58 years old. I did manage to handle my money well. I got some good advice so that I could retire early, and that's what I did. But that's
If I
really
can
how I got into it.
But if I can interrupt you for a moment, one thing that really caught my ear, and this is one thing that I want our listeners to be aware of,
Mhm.
and that is that you did not go to college till later in your 20s.
Right.
And a lot of people, they get into a situation where, oh, I didn't go to college. I'll never move up. I'll never do anything because I should have gone when I was younger. And part of this project is to encourage people because so many people, they're going through things and they think, well, they're the only one ever went through this.
Mhm.
And so I'm the only one struggling with this. I don't want anyone to know that I didn't do this.
Mhm.
So that's the thing that I think that caught my ear because I want people to know that it doesn't matter when you start, it matters how you finish.
Right.
And what you talked about is a late start and the relationship you had with your aunt got
Mhm.
you in the door, but the
Mhm.
relationship you had with others is what helped propel you forward.
Yeah.
That's Would
No,
that be an accurate assessment?
yeah, absolutely. And I like what you said about building relationships because I always talk about what made me successful in that setting. And what made me successful in that setting was building relationships. Having that ability to, you know, back in the 80s when I first started, Ed, the soft skills, in my opinion, weren't valued. And I always had those soft skills, right? There were technical skills, there were other skills that I had to learn along the way, but I always knew how to build relationships. I was a quick learner, a quick study. I always knew how to build relationships. I began to understand the politics of the corporate world, but um, building those relationships and just having those set of soft skills really helped me to, in my opinion, to be successful. I didn't always think that way. There were times where I thought I would wanted to be something that I wasn't. It was so funny. I tried to emulate others, but that didn't work for me. I had to be who I was, and I think that's what helped me to advance in my career. And I had a great career.
Now tell me this. Now you wanted to emulate other people. So again, everybody says you be you. So when you were looking at someone else, what
Mhm.
was it about that someone else that made you think, I want to be like this?
Well, you think you know someone, you think you know what is going on, and then you find out something different. There was someone that I used to watch, and I thought she was so dynamic, and I thought, okay, I'm going to be like her. Something she's whatever is making her successful. Well, I ended up working for this person, and what I found out was this person was not only not a very nice person, but she led with fear
Mm.
and wasn't as always as ethical as I thought she should be. And so after when I learned what was really going on, the facade, the fabulous clothes, the you walk in the room and everyone sees you, I thought that's what I wanted to be, but that's not what I wanted to be at all. And it took for me to really get to know this person to understand that's not what I wanted. And so I had to begin learning to be myself. And what I learned is being myself, having those skills to really relate to my teams, understanding how to um, get people to do the work through building those relationships. That's what made me successful. And so again, it was early in my career when I was a very new supervisor that I tried to be something that I wasn't. It didn't last very long. But just understanding what made me successful. And then having some mentors too, having some
What
mentors.
was the epiphany that made you think, I see this woman who appears to be successful. I
Right.
want to emulate her. I'm a supervisor. I'm taking on this persona.
Mhm.
What got you out of that? Because evidently that got her pretty far.
Right.
So you look and you say, okay, that's working for her. And what made you decide, well, it's working for her, but it's not for me?
Yeah. There were so many things that I saw.
Mm.
And there were so many little things that I saw. I studied ethical leadership in my master's degree.
Mm.
And one of the reasons I studied that in my master's degree was because of this particular person that um, I thought had no moral compass. There was the ethics were not there, and so that it drove me to understand what it meant to be an ethical leader. And this person was not that ethical leader. So that really, it was just a number of things that happened while working for this person that um, helped me to decide that's not how you lead people. That's just not. And maybe in the beginning, you're successful leading with fear or leading in an unethical way, but in the end, I don't think it works for you. And that's what I saw. And really, I can't put my finger on what it was, but there were different little things that occurred along the way that
Mm.
prompted me to say, what does it mean to be an ethical leader? And does it mean to have a shared vision? What does it mean to lead people? Um, you know, that's what I studied as in my master's degree.
Well, that's great. Now, one thing I want to do, you were going to talk about mentors, and I want to get to mentors, but the one thing that I think about, because sometimes when you work for someone, in some ways, they almost tacitly want you to take on their persona to get things done. Like, I want you to make this happen. And they become very demanding and pushy.
Mhm.
And did you experience that? And if you did, how did you deal with it?
Yeah, I experienced that a lot. I mentioned that I was very quiet. It took me a long time to find my voice. And there were things that were asked of me that I knew were not okay. They were not okay. Now, it wasn't anything that I didn't want to do, but I just felt like this wasn't the way to lead people.
Mhm.
And I knew, I had to decide what I was going to do and what I wasn't. And eventually I found my voice. And I remember one particular time that I was asked to do something that I felt wasn't appropriate. And I just had to speak up and say, no, this is just not what I'm going to do. It didn't go over well. And again, it was very early in my career. Um,
Talk to me a little about that that conversation.
mhm, mhm. That conversation was a little scary for me. I was very young, as a new supervisor and a little green, it was very scary for me. But basically, the situation was I was asked to hire someone who was not um, qualified,
Mhm.
clearly not qualified. And
Mhm.
I had someone in mind that who was qualified and who had been doing the job. And I remember thinking, how am I going to approach this, And I just had to sit down and have a conversation and say, how can we hire someone who's clearly not qualified because of a friendship that you may have, and someone here who has been doing the job who was clearly qualified? It wasn't an easy discussion, Ed. And sometimes I get emotional just thinking about it now because I was so young and so green. But at that moment, I found my voice to say, no, I don't think this is the right approach. I don't think this is the right decision. And eventually, she agreed, and we did not hire that person. And that was the beginning of me finding my voice in
Mhm.
the corporate world. You have to speak up. You have to speak up. And it may not always be easy, but you have to speak up. And I think that she began to have a little bit more respect for me at that moment too. If I think back about it, so that was the beginning of me just really understanding how I wanted to lead and how I wanted to lead others. And what worked for me was, again, doing the right thing. Always do the right thing. You know, think about the people that you're leading. Care about the people that you're leading. Have high expectations. I always have high expectations.
Right.
But
Before we leave that, the one thing that now this is something that's good for our listeners,
mhm,
because again, as I listen to you, this is what I want our listeners to hear, because it's the thing, that emotional thing.
mhm,
So when I'm sitting there and I am in that situation with you, when you're talking with that powerful boss and you're telling them, I want to hire someone who is qualified and is better to do that, that I can just imagine that person who's used to getting their way having someone who they're, I guess, feeling that they're bringing up, telling them in essence, no. And I want to basically, what I want younger people who are in early parts of their leadership career, because the head is one thing, but
mhm,
in the gut, it's something else. It's
mhm,
like, I know on paper this is the right thing to do, but because I used to always talk to my people who work with me and said, it's how it feels in your gut
right.
when you do it. And I imagine that for you, that had to be somewhat gut-wrenching to sit across from that person, tell them no, and then possibly sit with it for a couple of days before they came around.
Well, yeah, and I think that I was up all night thinking about it,
Mhm.
and but I knew that this wasn't the right thing to do.
Right.
And it wasn't the first time I had been approached with this kind of situation. And I didn't say no the first time, Ed.
Okay.
And that didn't set well with me at all.
Hmm.
But I knew this next time I was in the situation that I had to speak up. I had to say, this is not the right thing to do,
Right.
but it didn't come with a little fear, I had to have that courage to just finally say, uh, I just don't think this is the right. I did not know how this conversation was going to go. But it worked out in my favor. And again, that was probably the beginning of me understanding that I needed to have a voice. I needed to have,
Right.
and and that voice got stronger and stronger. The one thing I will say for your listeners, though, that it's how you approach each situation. I didn't
Hmm.
go in there aggressively. I didn't go in there emotionally. I just came in with the facts. Here's what this person has been doing. This person is qualified. This person is not. How can we do this?
Hmm.
But your approach is everything, especially when you're dealing with your boss. And pick and choose your battles. That's another thing that I had to learn. Pick and choose your battles. You don't have to fight every battle, but that one was big enough for me to say, no, I don't think we should do it this way. Again, I didn't know how that would turn out, but it turned out okay.
But another thing I think about is that a lot of times when people get into tense conversations,
Yeah.
the voices go up. Sitting there listening to your voice right now,
Mhm.
and I'm sitting there thinking it's what it's called controlling the temperature in a way.
Mhm.
And that if the voice goes up, then the other voice goes up. And I'm sitting there listening to you, and I'm thinking, if you were talking to her like you're talking right now,
Mhm.
it's harder for that temperature to go up. So tell me, were you talking in the same voice that you're talking with right now?
I don't remember. I was so young, but let me tell you this. I think I stayed calm because calm is who I am. They call me the quiet storm.
Okay.
I can remain calm in a situation, and that's why I did well in my career. So being calm is what I do, and especially when issues are escalated, because I used to handle highly escalated situations in the hospital. So remaining calm is what I do. Now I don't remember the tone back then. My voice was probably quivering if I think back, but I think I remained pretty calm. But I learned how to do that. I learned how to keep the temperature down, keep the voice down, um, without it going up. Because I have been in very difficult situations.
Now, wait a minute. This is golden. How did you learn how to do that?
I think it's through the work that I've done.
Okay.
Member relations is really about ensuring that we take care of situations that may not have gone so well. So,
Mhm.
as you can imagine, there in the hospital, you have family members who are escalated, you have patients who are escalated, and I had to learn how to bring the temperature down in my own way. And I did that very successfully. It took time. It took a lot of experience to do that. But what I remember is getting people to trust me. And maybe, just maybe, that conversation, as difficult as it was in my early days, I came with my argument and approaching it in the right way. Just maybe I got her to trust me a little bit more to say,
Mhm.
this is what I think is best for this department. This is what this, we have someone who has been doing a great job, who's qualified,
Mhm.
who's it. How
Right.
can we bring someone in who has no background, no experience, no qualifications to do this?
Mhm.
So I learned in my career how to de escalate situations, and I did that very successfully.
Absolutely. And this is just so good for me as a work relationship coach. But I did want to take a little bit of time to talk about the transition you made to the floral design
Mhm.
aspect, and how you got there and how that's going for you.
It's going very well, thank goodness. You know, I love floral work and design work, and I think it started actually 32 years ago when I got married. I
Mm,
designed my own wedding. It was then that I fell in love with wedding design, especially the beauty of flowers. Back then, I was working full time, and starting my family, so I wasn't able to pursue it full time. But it was definitely a passion of mine. But I loved creating beautiful events, and so for family and friends, I would design, some of their weddings. I did this part time over the years.
mm,
Um, Again, there was a time that I wanted to do it full time, but it just wasn't in the cards at the time. But I made a plan for myself. I always knew that this would be my second act. So like I said, I got some advice, some great advice. I learned how to manage my money. I didn't always do that well, but I learned how to manage my money. I lived pretty modestly. My family and I lived pretty modestly. And I decided at 58 I was going to retire and pursue this. So I think it started, like I said, very early on when I got married. And I loved planning my wedding. And I love the beauty of flowers. There are so many design and so many different beautiful flowers out there, that's really how I got started. That's really how I got started. I never let it go. I never let it go, no matter what. And again, entertaining and doing other work for friends and family was a way for me to keep my foot in it, even though I wasn't able to pursue it fully at that time.
which stayed in it and it worked out really well. Like I said, the half hour just goes by so darn fast.
I know.
So, is there anything else that I didn't ask that you said I would think this would be something good for the listeners to know? What would that be?
Oh boy. One of the things that even though I was working in the hospital and as a hospital administrator, and you even mentioned it, I had a lot of confidence. I come across with this confidence, right? But to start a new business was scary. And especially my own business. I always had people doing things for me, whether it was an assistant or a lead, paying attention to the details or, handling the details, handling all the things that needed to be done. As a new entrepreneur and someone who is working your own business, it's on you. So I had to start thinking differently. I had to start thinking differently. I had to set goals. I had to accomplish those goals myself. I had to learn where my strengths and weaknesses were. I hadn't had to do that in a very long time.
Mhm.
But I guess what I would leave them with is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Begin understanding the market that you want to be in, what your customers, your target customers are. Start with a very simple plan. My business plan was one little piece of paper and just some very simple plans that I mapped out for myself, nothing extensive. But I just stuck to that little plan. I stayed focused. Again, just really don't be afraid to ask questions. Find someone who's in the business, get a mentor, ask questions, and then just take it all in. Learn, learn, learn. And I think that's the biggest thing that I think your listeners can go away with is um, don't be afraid of something new.
Absolutely. And if people want to get a hold of you
Mhm,
to get a floral arrangement or just get to know more about you, where can they find you? What links with Facebook,
mhm.
website? How can they reach you?
I just started my website. It's really under construction now, so that's not available just yet. But I do have a Facebook group page. It's Angels Wings Floral Design. And then I just started Instagram. It's a dot floral design underscore, I think it is. But
Mhm.
if you look for Angels Wings, you should find me on Instagram as well as Facebook.
Well, Angel, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Well, I appreciate it, Ed, and it's so fun to go back and think about all the things that have allowed me to be successful in my journey. I haven't thought about some of those things in a very long time, but it was a great discussion with you today and reflect on all that I've done in my career.
And you've done a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Once again, this is the Edward Jones, CEO and founder of Pro Destiny Coaching. To learn more about my coaching, go to www.prodestinycoaching.com, take the work quiz, and let's have a conversation. And remember, work relationships work for those who work on them. Okay, I think that. Welcome to Work Relationships Matter. I'm your host, the Edward Jones, founder of Pro Destiny Coaching and Associates. Whether you work in a private corporation, nonprofit organization, or operate as an entrepreneur, work relationships matter. My guest today is Michelle Bartolome. She is the CEO of Dental Magic. They specialize in cosmetic dentistry. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing just fine, and it's so good to have you because I'm looking forward to you to share your thoughts and experiences that I know will help people out. Now, I imagine you've gone to mixers or whatever where you have a name tag on, and the first thing people do is come up to you and ask you, "What do you do?" Have you ever been to a place, a mixer like that?
Uh, no, not really. Mostly just dental conventions. But I mean, if we're out and about doing mommy things, right,
Right.
meeting new people, yeah. So
And then so the thing of it is so what we do now is before we get into all the things that you've done, because you have a, client-centered dental practice. That's what I call it, because everybody there is so friendly, so outgoing, and just feel very comfortable there. So that to me is an area of what I call a area of success because people seem to enjoy working with you, and clients seem to be very, very comfortable being there. But before we get into your practice, I want to know who you are. So what you do is one thing, but who you are is another part. And so the one thing that I want our listeners to know where people come from and then how they got to where they are. So let's go back and think about the things or people that influenced you to become a successful dentist.
oh wow, thank you for that. Sure. People, influencers.
Or events, whatever it might be.
Oh, okay. Why I wanted to get into dentistry? I would. Huh. Sorry, I'm just laughing. I don't even know where to start. I guess why I wanted to get into dentistry, I would say I wanted a profession that was going to challenge me, where I had to study hard at something, something that I could use my hands with. I'm very artistic. I like to see results, like what I can actually create physically. And I just like people. And when I was thinking about career choices, that kind of all fit into that. When I went into graduate school, undergrad, I volunteered and then I started working as a dental assistant, and that really sparked my interest. And then actually downstairs from where my practice is now is Dr. Weideman's office. And so when I was in undergraduate school, I asked if I could be like just do like a one-day thing and hang out with her, and I really enjoyed what they were doing. And oddly enough, when I bought a practice, upstairs from hers. So it's kind of interesting how things go full circle and the people that you meet and how it all works out.
Well, one thing I'm thinking about is even going back further than that. Now, when you were a child, because this is what I always say to dentists. I think I've said it to you as well. I'm thinking about working in somebody's mouth. It's got to be, oh my goodness. But I'm thinking as a child coming up, were there people that were in dentistry that you knew, or were there something I'm thinking about when you were in grade school, middle school, etc. Was there something there that kind of got your attention that maybe kind of maybe you had a science class and dissecting a frog and think, well, maybe I'll go into dentistry. I really like this. Was there something that happened in your early life that kind of helped move you in that direction that got you to that point where you said, I want to go and look at somebody doing this?
That's really funny. It's really funny. As I work in mouths today, I think back and I go, I had no idea I would be working in a dark, wet little cave my whole entire life. And it's like, this is kind of really difficult and weird.
Right.
I don't know. When we were little kids and my cousins would have a loose tooth, I would be like the person to do it. Like I would be there. I was like wiggling little kids' teeth while I was a little kid. And I think I pulled out my cousin's tooth. She was much younger than me. I wiggled it out and I took it out for her. And I mean, that's like the earliest experience that I can ever think of that, you know, I was doing like dental surgery, I guess, without a license back in the day. But I don't know. I always had a really good experience with the dentist that I grew up with. When we were little, like in Sacramento, I think my far off distance cousin, she was a dental assistant. And so we would go to her practice that she was working at. And she would bring me toys in between like the cleanings and the exams. And I was never afraid. And those positive experiences probably just stuck with me. So, yeah.
Right. Because it really is interesting because I find that a lot of people, when things that happened when they were younger or people that influenced them, that helped them move into a certain profession and everything. So as we look at it, and it seems to be true of you as well, it's just kind of a natural thing, because the one question I often ask people is, did your career choose you or did you choose it? So I think I have the answer to that question, but can you confirm that for me?
I think I definitely chose my profession. It's kind of interesting with all of that going on that I kind of just reviewed. Oddly enough, somewhere around second or third grade, I don't know if I was just a progressive thinker, but I was like playing outside in my mom's front yard, you know, when we were living out in Sacramento. And I was like, I want to make sure I have a job where I can help people and I can earn enough of a living where I never have to feel like I won't be financially unstable, and I would be able to hang out with my kids, watch them grow up, and work 3 days a week. And it's just kind of funny, like what kind of 2-year-old, you know, a second grader thinks about those things, but I don't know. So I definitely chose the profession.
Well, that is really interesting, because the thing that makes me think about is the idea of work-life balance, that at that young age, that's what you were thinking about, because I want to earn a living, but I want to have time with my family.
Right. And it's just funny. I mean, what young kid thinks about that? And then sometime in high school, probably my freshman year, I was like, yeah, I think I want to be a dentist. That sounds really good. And ever since then, I've been pursuing that and I'm working on that. So it's interesting. I just knew what I wanted to do and I liked it. I think I floundered somewhere around undergraduate school when you get really tired and burnt out and the pressure is like really weighing on you and you think I can't do this. And I literally like had some sharp, mean words to myself in my mind. And I said, you know what, you're going to do this and you're going to apply. And when you finish school, if you don't like it, this is what you're going to be. So just deal with it. So you kind of have to work through the self-doubt. But yeah, no, I love my profession. I love my career. I love what I'm doing. So yeah, I just was kind of, I guess, straight-laced all the way through, kind of, this is what I want to do. And I did it.
Well, the thing that I think about, and I'm glad you touched upon that valley part that you talked about, where you started to get the burnout part, because the thing that happens with a lot of the listeners, and this is the thing I say, is that they felt that they were the only ones that are going through something like that. And so listening to people who've made it through that valley and moved, back to where they wanted to be, I think that's a journey that people need to know that everybody probably goes through to a certain degree. So when you think about that, I mean, obviously, if you're studying hard, and you can get burned out from just basically working so hard to do something and maybe feel you're missing out on things. So tell me about that valley part and how you kind of worked yourself through it.
You never really work yourself out of it, I think. I think as long as you accept it as part of life, because that can be anything that you're striving for,
Hmm.
you just kind of have to know what to expect when you fall down and low, and that
Hmm.
at some point those feelings will go away if you just continue to do it. Because I feel burnt out all the time. It's not just about
Hmm.
dentistry, but kind of like, you get home, you're tired, and your
Hmm.
kids want from you, and you don't have anything
Right.
left, and you
Yeah.
just feel so bad that you just want to
Hmm.
go to sleep, and you
Hmm.
only have 2 hours to shower, eat something, cook, wash the kids up, and then go back to bed and then start all over. And so I think that through every stage in life, you're gonna go through that, and
Right.
there's one specific way to get out of it. I think that if you just know that it's gonna cycle out, and then try and figure out where your work life balance is, and always continue to work on it, right? Right, you just have to continue to work on it. You can't just be like, this worked this time, it's gonna work again. Just be encouraged that you're gonna come out of it. Is
Right.
the best way I can describe it. But it's gonna be different each time, because each time it pops up, it has to do with a different part in a different stage of your life. So as long as you know that, and that you're going to come out of it, and you just work towards it, that's the best way that I can kind of encourage you, is that, and then knowing that, like you said, there's someone else out there going through that as well. So if you have a support system, that's always helpful too.
Okay, and I want to pick up on some of those things too, but the one thing I want to ask about, how old are your children?
I have a 10-year-old boy and a 4-year-old boy.
Okay, all right. Because I think about the thing about my daughter has two toddlers, and they are just, I
Oh,
mean, off the chain in terms of energy, just running around. I used like, my goodness, I know why young people have children, because it's
yes.
just, they're bouncing there, and that's the thing there. I remember when I was working with my kids were small, it's kind of like, it's like I couldn't wait to get back to work because it was just so hectic and things like that. So
Right, right,
um,
right.
so are the 4-year-old, and I've forgotten, so I'm sorry, but is a 4-year-old or the 10-year-old, are they as demanding in terms of energy, in terms of following them around and keeping up with them?
I would say so. I think that they're normal and I'm normal. It's just I'm older.
Right.
I decided to have kids late. I really
Hmm.
did. Like, we have nephews and nieces who are in high school and in college, finished college, and as siblings, adult siblings, we're not that far apart in age. So we decided to
Right.
have kids later. Sometimes I'm just like, boy, if I just had you at like 17 years old.
Mhm. Right.
I would have, but you make those choices when you have careers, and we family plan to the T. I was like, okay, I'm 30, we're gonna have kids this year, and
Right.
and so we had kids late. They do have a lot of energy, but for the most part, they're really great kids. But yeah, I think it's me. I think it's me choosing to have kids late, and you know, if I was younger, I'd probably have more energy. But when we snuggle and I take naps, they're great snugglers.
Right. Well, and that's all a part of it, the work-life balance, because you have
Right.
because it's a lot of stuff, and the idea of having what people say, having it all, having the career, having the family, having all those things. I think it weighs on everyone, and I think that there's just that period of time, and in the whole scheme of life, it really is a short period of time, but it's so intense.
That's a good way to put it, actually. Yes.
Right. So you do that. So the thing about it is that, and I guess the things you were talking about was the support system. So I'm thinking
Hmm.
about people who are going through what you are going through in this process, and let me tell you, when you look back, it's like, my goodness, Wow, that is so long ago. And that for me, I'm looking, but I remember being in it and just, oh my goodness, this is just overwhelming. So support systems are very important. So what are the support systems that you have that help you?
Ah, gosh, what a refreshing question. Definitely God. You talk to
Okay.
him every day, and you feel his presence, and that's like the one person you can always trust. Whether
Right.
things go right or wrong, it doesn't matter because he has a plan. So I'm not to, if I'm feeling overwhelmed or stressed, I don't know, he's got me. The
Right.
other support system for sure is my husband. He's like so perfect. We've been together 20 years. Can you imagine? Because, you know, I still look like a baby. And he's wonderful. It's so funny sometimes because I'm just dreaming and I'm talking out loud and I'm going like 1,000 miles per hour. And he's like, slow down. And sometimes he likes to burst my bubble. But in the end, he's always the one like supporting me, putting things together, lining things up. He's amazing. It takes a very dynamic person, I think, to be married to me because I have my ups and downs of my lefts and rights, and he can keep up. And he's been wonderful. Other support systems, just other dentists that I know, friends from dental school, and friends that I've made through my son. Like he makes friends and I make friends with their parents. And that's always nice. We'll always be on the same page when it comes to whatever our kids are up to. And so those are the people that I really depend on and lean on.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So that's a good part there. Now let's move to the practice. And a thing that I see as a patient, I just see people that are just so warm and friendly and just always welcoming. So talking about and the thing that I look at is that a lot of that starts with the leader, the personality of an organization. I've done when I was worked in universities, I used to do consulting for other universities. You could always tell the climate by, you could feel the energy in there. And so with yours, I feel the energy, I feel the kind of like an extra mile type of thing, but just a whole atmosphere of camaraderie. So tell me about your leadership style and how you work to create that type of environment.
Oh, you're so sweet. I love having you as patient.
Well, thank you.
I don't know. A leadership. That's kind of funny because I'm still working on that. Leadership. That's so weird. How do I create that? I don't know. I don't know if I'm trying. I guess it just happens. But that doesn't make sense either because success, I guess, or camaraderie doesn't really happen. The practice was there since 1981. Wonderful Dr. Swearingen, and he actually stayed on board with me for the first 5 years. And for me, you know, transitioning into someone else's practice, I never thought of it as like, this is mine and I own it. I always felt like I was going into somebody else's house. And, you know, if you go into somebody else's house, just being Filipino, you take your shoes off. You're very polite. You're respectful. You respect everything that's there. It doesn't belong to you. Well, going into this practice, I was kind of the same way. Even though I owned it, I was still under his mentorship. And to me, I felt like those were still his patients until the patients wanted me and trusted me to be their caregiver. And that's the same thing with all the employees. I never was like, I'm the boss of you. Even to this day, I'm never like, oh, I'm the boss of you. I'm always very considerate. When we sit down and we pick the days for vacation and holiday every year, I'm always like, ever since I've been there for 11 years, I'm like, okay, you pick the schedule, you make the schedule. And as a group, they get to decide when their vacations are going to be. And it's always been like that, even with him. So I feel like integrating myself versus trying to get the practice to integrate, like try to get the practice to do things my way. I kind of just went with what was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I really loved what was there. And I think if you respect people enough and you let them know that you care about them, and if your intentions are always been sincere to be like, I'm here to be a caregiver, I'm here to take care of you, even your employees, I think that you can feel that when you walk in. Like with my team members, I'm always very accommodating being a mom. So I'm always like family first. So if your family needs anything and it's really important, then that's a priority over work. And when people see that and you're sincere about it, that just makes it easy for them to work hard and give back. When I bought the practice, I worked for corporate for quite some time, and I really learned how to not run a business and how I didn't want to be treated and how I didn't want other people to be treated. And so when I work and I take on employees, my biggest thing is that I want them to always feel like they're secure. I never want them to feel like they're going to get their hours taken away if we happen to not have very many patients or things to do that day. And I give them a lot of choices. When we train, I do it with respect. And I think the patients notice that, and the team members notice that. And what I love about each of my team members is they're self-driven, and every person feels like what they're doing is really important, not only for themselves, but for like the patients that they're helping. And so I think part of it is just lucky to be integrated into a practice that was already like that, that can accommodate my personality versus trying to change everything. And then letting people know that you care about them, every part of them, team members to patients. And it just feels like everyone who comes in the door is coming into your house. So but that's kind of, I don't know if I purposely created that. It's just the way I do things. And the positive outcome is just kind of what you see when you walk in.
Right. Now, the thing that you talked about was when you worked for corporate, what was that life like? Was it demanding? Was it just top down, or what was the culture there?
Yes, and yes. It's funny because when I decided to go into dental school, and I finished dental school, and I was all starry-eyed, and I'm like, I'm ready to help people. Then I got my first job, and you can say that I paid my dues in the dental world and been through all of that. It was kind of like people were numbers, and it was all about production and output without a solid team to actually attain those goals. And so it's very mind-boggling to see how dysfunctional things could be when it was all about money. And then things it worked out, and I was able to find this beautiful practice. And I was like, no, it's not about that. It's about people first, caring, and then everything else will kind of just fill in. But yeah, I think coming out of dental school, that was my first shock. Like, I thought I went into school to help people. Right. I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know that dentistry is a business, right? I just so naive and starry-eyed. I just want to help people, and I like teeth. What is all this numbers and production? So yeah, it was definitely quite interesting. And I think that because of those experiences and being so extreme and opposite of what we're doing with my practice, it was a good contrast. Like negative things while you're going through it, like you said, those little valleys where you go down, those things are actually really beneficial because they turn into better things later if you just wait for it.
Okay, and you say you learned what not to do. Now, what is the toughest situation you've ever faced, and how did you handle it?
Ooh, wow. These are great questions. Okay, this has nothing to do with dentistry. It has to actually do with like life outside of dentistry. Okay. So my first child was born, and literally my prayer to Jesus, like my first prayer to God was, dear Lord, please forgive me in advance if I mess this up. I think I'll try to do better on the second one. That was like my prayer. I was like, and the first 2 weeks were rough because my mom is a registered nurse. And so everything was wrong. Like, and she tried to bestow all of her, 30 years of being a caregiver into me and into this child. And I said, look, Mom, I had to just tell her straight up on the phone, because of course you don't want to talk to your mom face to face on this kind of subject. Mom, okay, right now, all I need to know is eating and playing and poop. That's it. Like, I don't need to know anything else. And
right.
as it comes up, I'll learn. And if I don't know it, I'll ask somebody.
Okay, good.
So raising kids, I think, is a challenge. It's like the personalities are different, and you have to kind of just adapt. And so, yeah, I think that was probably one of my most challenging moments. It's like, oh my God, I have this human being. I've never held a baby he was the first baby I ever held. So that was quite interesting to be like, oh my God, whoa, what is this? Because we didn't have, as the cousins grew up, I was probably on the lower scale. We're all kind of the same age. So I've never held a baby before. So I would say that was definitely challenging, because a baby will slow your life down.
Right.
Because all of a sudden it was like, it's all about me. Okay, and then I got married. Now it's all about us. And then it's like, oh, now there's a baby. And I was like, I can't even go to the supermarket. This is so difficult. I can't jumble all this stuff together. And what are you going to need? And it's just funny. Definitely having a kid was a big challenge for me. I didn't know what to do, because everything in life was, okay, I'm going to strive. This is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to line everything up. And, you have your little, we know what we're going to do. And you put a baby in there, and it's like, oh, right when you're going to leave, he goes to the bathroom. It's like, okay, right. We're changing plans. Now we're late. It's like, what is this? So I would say that.
Okay, well, great. Well, back to the practice. What do you find most rewarding?
Oh, gosh. You're like meant for the profession you're in when the smallest things and littlest details just make you feel so satisfied. So I like making things look pretty. So you can take this bombed out tooth and clean it up and make it look all pretty and white and clean and infection free, and cover it up and make it strong. And you're just like, that's enough. Can I just go home today? That was a great, that's it. Let's leave on this good note. Yeah. And it's just so funny, because you're like you said, being in the mouth, that's kind of a gross thing, but I don't know, if you're made for it, it feels really good. Extracting teeth is really satisfying. I mean, people, when you see people those commercials where they're on the beach and their feet are up and you can see the waves in the ocean. When I extract teeth, I kind of feel like I'm in that place. It's weird. I feel comfortable. I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's really satisfying to me. Just the simple things, really.
Yeah, this sounds like that. This definitely is your calling.
Yeah, that's right.
Now,
Nobody else
is there
would want to do
anything
that.
else that you'd like to share with the listeners that I didn't ask you about, but you think would be good for them to know about you, your practice, or anything else?
What would I like them to know? I really care about people. I don't know you yet, whoever you are out there, but I care about you. And if you come in, I will help you with whatever needs that you have. I'm not the kind of person who's like, okay, you have to trust me. I think it's like you're coming into my house. You chose me, so you're here. But just because you chose me doesn't mean that you trust me yet. And so as we work together on your dental health, you can decide if I'm someone that you can trust and would want to continue this journey with. I have a lot of wonderful patients that have been with the practice even before Swearingen's time, even the time with Dr. Molitor, even the time before we moved to this building 40 years ago. And their files are this thick. It's so much fun. And to be part of that is just wonderful. And I would love to have a long-lasting relationship with anyone who comes in the door. I think people are important, and I think the human condition is important. It's not to be neglected. If you have high fear or if you're just going through things in life, it's just nice to share those things. Like, it's not just about teeth, you know. You don't have to get super personal with me, but a lot of my patients, we talk about things that are important to me and important to them, and it's just a great relationship. Team members are very much the same way, and you know, patients they're our friends, and they have needs, and we're just here to take care of them. And it's been really fun and rewarding, and I've built a lot of sincere relationships, and I really like that about what we're doing.
And that is wonderful. And I just think about how my daughter doesn't like to go she goes to the dentist every 6 or 7 years, whether she needs it or not, and how she's got the dental phobia, but you really helped her to work through that. So I really appreciate that part of it. And just so that you know that we have our next door group, and somebody was asking for a dentist, and I gave him your contact information.
Oh, you're so sweet. And that's wonderful. Like, I know that I see you and I see your family members, and we built a relationship, and you felt like, oh, I mean, of anything, you know, you refer in your children. I mean, that's a huge thing. And I appreciate all of that. So thank you. Yes. And your daughter's really wonderful. I can't wait. So she'll be due then in a couple of years to see me, huh?
I've got 3 more years to go before she
Sounds good.
If she stays on schedule. Now, if people want to contact you or learn more about your practice, how can they do that?
Best thing is to call. We have a great receptionist up front. Her name is Sherry. She's been with the practice for 20 years. She knows the ins and outs. She's wonderful. She'll answer any questions for you. But our office number is 916-966-175, and that's probably the best way to reach us. And, you know, hopefully we can meet anyone who's interested in getting really good dentistry in a comfortable, friendly environment.
And if you have a website as well that someone could check out if they wanted to?
Yes, it's dentalmagic.net.
Okay, well, that's good for those who are more into getting the keyboards. They could do that one, and those who like to call, they've got that number. So I appreciate everything that you have to say. Thank you for being my guest today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
And thank you. And once again, folks, I am the Edward Jones, the CEO and founder of ProDestiny Coaching. If you want to learn more about my practice, go to www.prodestinycoaching.com. Go online and take the work quiz, and then let's have a conversation. But most of all, remember that work relationships work for those who work on them.